All right, Nikki Selby, welcome to the Patriot Podcast. We're very excited to have you here, and we're excited to be here in your space here in California.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why California? Why are you based here? What brought you here?
I was in the military, and this was where I spent most of my time, and I ended up retiring here, and now I'm here. So
Awesome. Well, it's beautiful.
It
The
is.
drive down here from San Diego was amazing. So
yeah.
absolutely happy to be here. I want to read a really quick intro for those who are not aware of who you are. Let's go ahead with it. Nikki Selby, a retired U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, flight nurse, and trauma specialist with over 2 decades of experience on the front lines of combat medicine, from high-risk rescue missions to providing critical care thousands of feet in the air. She served in some of the most austere and intense environments imaginable, including deployments to Afghanistan, Haiti, and aboard Navy ships around the world. She's trained countless medics and nurses in life-saving techniques, helped shape battlefield medical protocols, and continues her mission today through community rescue work and veteran advocacy. Nikki Selby.
That makes me sound very cool.
You are cool. We're very excited to be here with you. I feel like we were mentioning it earlier, you've got so many accolades. Like, you're not just a nurse, you've also got this whole veteran background that like is super badass, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one more thing, I wanted to do a couple of really quick icebreaker questions for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Should get the conversation flowing.
Yes,
So
sure.
number one, this is a very important question.
Uh-huh.
On a scale of Band-Aid to amputation, how dramatic are your civilian friends when they get a paper cut?
Oh gosh. I wouldn't even say it's civilian friends. It's men.
Men, always men.
Men
Okay.
are very, yeah. I would say dramatic wise, maybe like an 8-ish.
So men are always more dramatic though.
Yes.
Got it.
I'd say that.
Next question. What is one thing that you saw in the military that made you think, yeah, we're definitely not in the brochure anymore?
Probably when I was on one of my first critical care flights by myself at night with a pen light between my teeth with a very critical patient missing, I think that one was missing both of his legs, and nothing had gone how I thought it would go in my head, and I was pretty much thrown on the helicopter, and I remember thinking, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those intense moments that I just don't know how I wound up in that spot, but yeah.
I can imagine. It's stressful,
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yes.
Yeah. Question number 3. You are in a helicopter. Someone's injured. Alarms are going off. What is the one snack that you'd love to have in that moment?
My favorite snacks my favorite treats are milk duds.
Or what? Milk duds?
Milk duds. Those are
Interesting.
my weakness. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was expecting like a snack bar or something, but milk duds.
No,
Okay.
I love milk duds.
Last question. If you had to pick a theme song for every time you entered the trauma bay, what would it be?
Oh gosh. The first song that came to my head is that clown song, like you see on some of those reels where it's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Where it's just like, I don't know, not a song, but just where it's, things are not going.
So clown song, because it's like chaos.
Yeah.
It's like
kind of
okay.
like, everything's crazy, and yeah.
Nice. Okay. Fair enough.
Those are interesting questions.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I need to have some fun every once in a
Yeah,
while. So I want to now dive into your story a little bit.
Okay.
Let's kind of start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Okay. First thing I remember is North Dakota. I think I was 2 or 3. No, 2, I think. My dad was Air Force, so we traveled all over with him. And my first memories are North Dakota when he was stationed there, and it was very cold. That's all I really remember.
Yeah.
And I do remember my dad always saying that you can't pass vehicles on the side of the road in the winter because you have to check and make sure nobody's dead inside them because
Wow.
it gets so cold up there. And then after that, we moved to Nebraska, and I would say Nebraska was kind of my white picket fence time in my life where my mom was staying at home. My dad went to work, and he had pretty normal hours during that time. And, growing up and started kindergarten, went to grade school, was in gymnastics and tennis and all that stuff. So my fondest memories are probably Nebraska because it's just, my little happy place, I guess.
Yeah.
And we moved to Las Vegas, and that's where he retired, and things changed a lot. And he retired, started working in the casinos. My mom started working at that time, and that kind of changed a lot of the dynamics because I was so used to her being home. And I don't really care particularly for Vegas. One, because the weather is, I don't like the heat.
Very hot.
So very, very hot. And we moved there in August. And I remember we had one of those garages that were like a manual garage, and we had the metal lock that would lock it. And I remember going out there to open the garage, and I stuck my hand on there in the middle of the day, and my hand burned, and I was just like, this is hell. This is officially hell. So, and so the remainder of my childhood was there, and I ended up I played tennis. That was kind of my sport. And I thought, from the many years I played, and I was ranked in the state and played many tournaments, that at least I would get a college scholarship out of it. But I kind of screwed up my last couple of years of high school and got kicked off the tennis team. So kind of found myself just, like, what the heck am I going to do? My dad was very much like, well, figure it out, because you're not going to stay here when you're 18. And so I joined the military.
Was there any pressure from your dad, or was it very much like, do whatever you want, but whatever makes you happy, but just find something?
He actually, when we were growing up, he told my brother and I, like, you never join the military. Do anything else but join the military. He hated the politics about it, which I learned later on in my career. But he actually told us he would murder us if we joined the military. So we both ended up joining the military. But yeah, it was just one of those things where he was pretty like, you screwed up everything that I gave you, so you figure it out when you turn 18. And so really the only thing you can do is join the military at that point. So my intention was to go one enlistment, get the GI Bill, and then figure out college and do all that on my own. But it kept going. And then 24 years.
Why Navy?
My brother had joined.
Okay. Before you.
Yeah, he was 3 years before me. He joined the Navy. I actually did go to the Air Force recruiter, and I don't know if I caught him on a bad day, but he was like, I'm going to lunch. I don't have time right now. And so they were all in the same office. And so I was like, okay, he just wasn't very friendly or welcoming. So walked down. The next office was the Marine Corps, and he was like, oh, come on in. And I was like, no, I'm good. And so the next office was the Navy office, and they were very friendly and welcoming. And then my brother had joined already. So I was like, okay, let me sit down and see what this is about. So yeah.
And you weren't on any sort of medical path at that point?
I was not, actually. So what sounded really cool was being basically in aviation and rescue swimmer. And so I was like, that's really cool. So that's what I joined initially. I enlisted for rescue swimmer, aviation. Didn't know what I was getting into, had no idea really what it was about. And so I got to boot camp, and it was one of the special programs. So you had to pass a certain physical before you got out of boot camp, before you could continue on in that career path. And the swimming was no problem. The sit-ups were no problem. The push-ups I wasn't like this buff kid that worked out all the time. And so had a hard time with the push-ups, because it had to be a very specific way. You had to go down to someone's fist. And I think I made the number that they wanted, but they didn't count 2 of them. And so I ended up failing out of that program while I was in boot camp. And so I had to go back to the detailer and find another job. And I just remember my brother always saying, do not go undesignated. You have to have a job, because otherwise you're sitting on the side of a ship, chipping paint or something. So corpsman was available. So I was like, well, that sounds cool. So
your entire career was just like, it was just the best of a list of options. You didn't really have any specific inclination towards it.
No,
Interesting.
My whole thing, I was like, I'm just going to do 5 years, and I'm going to get my GI Bill, and that's it. So, figure out something that sounds somewhat cool, and then go for it. So I picked up corpsman, and which turned out to be great. I thought about that before when I was enlisting. That actually wasn't available at the time. So in a roundabout way, I guess it worked out. But I went down to Florida, did a couple years there. And then when I was down there, I met another corpsman that was doing search and rescue. And I didn't realize corpsmen could fly. Nobody had ever mentioned that. So I was like, well, what do you do? And he's like, well, I fly in helicopters, and they're with the rescue swimmers, and they do all this stuff. I'm like, wow. So this is like, I can kind of go back to what I wanted to do. And so I went to my career counselor and I said, hey, have you heard of this search and rescue corpsman thing? And she was like, oh yeah, but that's only for males. And I was kind of like, this was 1998 at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why would that only be for males? It's rescue. It's not like it's combat or, whatever. And so at that, this is a teaching moment for me. And then when I mentor people, I always tell them, don't take anyone's word for, as gospel, like make sure you see that in writing. And so I actually was turning around to be like, okay, well, I guess I can't do that. And then I stopped and I turned around and looked at her and I said, well, I was like, I don't understand why this is only for males. Can you show me the instruction? And she was like, well, there's no females that are doing it. And I said, well, no males and, or you can't do it because it's only for males, and no females in the job that's two different things.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I said, well, does it say specifically that no females can do this? And she was like, well, I don't really know. So she went and looked at the instruction, and turns out it doesn't say that. So she came back and she's like, well, it doesn't say that females can't do it. So I guess you can apply for it, which should have been my first clue that there's a reason why there weren't a lot of females in it, because it was very demanding.
Yeah.
Ended up throwing my application in because I just saw helicopters and cool, and this will be fun and flying, and got accepted and went to my first school, which wasn't too bad, but it definitely left a mark on me because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not in shape for this at all. So, but I made it through it, and then made it through.
So before we go into that, what was some of that training like for the search and rescue corpsman?
So it was the first thing is air crew school. So you're doing a lot of water survival and, learning just all the stuff with aviation. So a lot of survival stuff. But because it's a structured school, you're running every day and you're doing calisthenics and you're doing all this stuff. And it's not something that I was like super into. So, it was pretty tough for me. I was never the fastest runner. I actually hate running. Swimming, pool stuff, love it. I'll do that all day long. But all the running and push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups and all this stuff was just not my thing. But I struggled my way through it. And then my first duty station. So when I talked to the one corpsman that told me about the search and rescue stuff, he was over water. So his duty station, they were over water. I chose a duty station called China Lake, which is north of Barstow here in California. And that is over land. So it's a mountain rescue. I didn't think to ask questions with that. And because what I was told is that the search and rescue corpsmen, they usually stay up in the helicopter. The rescue swimmer goes down in the water, gets the survivor, brings them up, and then you do the follow-on care in the helicopter. And so I get to my first duty station and they say, all right, we're going to send you to rappel school. And I'm terrified of heights, terrified. And so I was like, what do you mean rappel school? And I was like, no, we stay up in the helicopter. And they're like, oh no, over land you go down. And I was like, no, that's not what they said. So I was kind of having this back and forth with my senior corpsman at the time. And he's like, look, you can either go to rappel school or you can pick a different job. And I was like, okay, guess I'm going to rappel school. So ended up at Camp Pendleton at the rappel school. And I remember the first going down off the tower, and my legs were shaking the entire tower. And there was a senior chief down below, and he's like, just go. So finally did it, which then I was like, oh, this is actually really fun. So I ended up loving it and loved rappelling and doing all those things.
Nice.
So, yeah. Really
when you say aviation training, you're learning how to fly or just how to operate in the air?
No, so we're a crewman. So you're learning how to be a crewman in the back of a helicopter. We're learning all the safety stuff and water survival if you end up crashing, and like what you do if you have to survive out in the ocean until somebody.
So care revolving around aviation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No flying or anything like that.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So.
Cool. So after rappel school, what?
So go back to my duty station, and we're learning, just how to rescue and do all the things in the helicopter. And yes, at the time I was the only female in the Navy doing it. There were females before me. I don't know how many, maybe one or two before my time. And then there have been many females after me. So, but yeah, I feel like I got my butt handed to me quite a few times. I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And I don't really research or think about it or,
just jump head first.
I just jump head first. And then I realize, like, oh, I probably could have thought that one through a little better. But, I think with that kind of personality, I'm always like, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. So I find people don't do things that they think they want to do because they overthink it, and it's all the what ifs and what if that, and what if I fail or what if I don't. And I've always kind of been like, well, if I don't make it, then I'll figure it out. I'll do something else. So
it's like your entrepreneurial journey too. Like we were talking about that too. Like it's just like, you don't know why you did it, but you just did, and you kind of took that leap of faith. And it seems like it's paid off your whole life.
Yep. I managed to, I guess I'm like a cat. I land on my feet pretty much for the most part. So but I don't, and it's weird because I've never been that kind of person. Like growing up, I was very timid and shy, and I, always stood in the back. I never put myself out there. So I don't know why these things have, where all these personalities came from with me, but it's been fun. It's been a journey. So
do you feel like the military has kind of like, created a little bit more of that in you, that
for sure.
confidence and,
Yes. I mean, all the things that I've gotten through, it's definitely been it's things I never thought I could ever do, really. Like once I was there, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. And then it's, I'm kind of stuck in it and I have to figure it out. So I think if I would have had time to think about it, I would have said no or didn't do it. But, I guess things happen for a reason. So, so after that duty station, I wanted to get down to San Diego, and the only thing available was rescue swimmer instructor. And that was surface, not aviation, but they have pretty much the same curriculum other than the aviators have a whole aviation part that they have to jump from the helicopter and everything. But again, going through that school, I was the only female and just getting my butt handed to me. It's just, it's one of those things like, how did I get here? How do I keep ending up in these positions? But made it through, and I was down there for about 4 years, and then decided that I loved what I was doing, but there really wasn't a good career path for that to keep, to promote or to, progress in that career field. So, and I still at that time in the back of my mind, I thought I was going to get out. And so with search and rescue in the civilian sector, it's really more police or fire. And I just wasn't thinking like I want to go through all of that again and like go back to the beginning and start over. So for me, I guess the natural progression was becoming a nurse, or I threw in a commissioning package kind of on the whim, and ended up getting selected, and they sent me to nursing school, and then came back as an officer. So at that point it was at 10 years, and decided, well, I owe them 4 years, but at that point it's 14 years. So I might as well go to the 20s. So that's kind of how I fell into that. But my second duty station, as a nurse, I ended up deploying. I went to Haiti on a 24 to 48 hour notice. The earthquake happened, and I got a phone call from one of my division officers. I was supposed to go into work at the hospital, and she said, don't come into work. And I said, okay. I thought I did something wrong the night before. I'm like, did my patient die or what happened? And she's like, no, I need you here in the morning. And she's like, you've been watching the news, right? And I was like, okay. It's like, at that point it was 3 days after the earthquake. And I said, yeah. And she was like, well, we're going to send you to Haiti. And I said, oh, okay. And I was like, well, when? And she's like, well, tomorrow. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had my first kid, and I had my 2 last ones back to back. And so they're babies. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You gotta make very last minute plans. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and I kind of was thinking, I'm like, there's no way the Navy can get it together where they're sending this group down to Haiti in 24 hours. And it wasn't 24 hours, but it was 48 hours. And I was on a plane going down there for an unknown time. We didn't know how long we were going to be down there. So
how long did you stay?
That was 3 months, which, it doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of people, but I'm like, when you have like a 24-hour notice and you have this whole family and everything going on, and you don't have time to plan or think about it, that's quite a long time. Like, especially when you go, you don't know when you're coming back. So you're kind of going for, unknown time frame. It can get quite, it's a long time. And that was pretty crazy. The minute we got down to Haiti, we were on one of the LHD, one of the amphibious warships, and the day I landed, and we hadn't slept because it took us about, I want to say 36 hours to get down there, just because we got stuck in Cuba, and then ended up flying out to Haiti, and then we got onto one of the ships. I mean, there's a lot of craziness just to even get out to the ship. Won't cover that, but finally get to my ship, and I'm just exhausted. Nobody slept for that whole time. And then I just hear them, they're like, get down to the trauma bay, we have incoming. And it was like 36 incoming survivors. And I know nothing about ships. I've never been on a ship before. I don't know what we're doing. I don't even know where we're supposed to be. And we're just in this trauma bay where they're like, just grab somebody and then take them over to the one of the beds. And we're just like, what is going on right now? So yeah, that was a long 3 months.
Was that new to you, being like onslaught of 36? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
not that you're taking 36 patients yourself, but like
Yeah.
36 just like
Oh, yeah.
thrown at you.
Yeah, that was because, I mean, up until that point, it was, as a corpsman, I was doing stuff on the outside. It was, just onesie, twosies. And then, hospital for my first couple of years as a nurse, so just regular hospital type things. And then, yeah, that was the first time I'd seen, we were just very disoriented because, again, getting to the ship was a whole ordeal. And so we get there, nobody slept probably longer than 36 hours at that point. A couple of days, nobody has slept. And, now we're like, told just grab a body and take it to a, just do something is what they said. I was like,
get to work.
What am I doing? So, at this point I'm a pretty new nurse still. So I'm like, what do you want me to do exactly? So yeah. And then the trauma surgeons were going through and trying to find the worst ones. And then we had some ORs on the ship. So it was just, and that pace never really ended for that 3 months. Like it was just, we would sleep for, 10 hours and get back on to our shift. And then, you're just going the whole time. So it was a long 3 months.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So then I got back from there. And at that time we were, if you were a critical care nurse, you were getting deployed really often. And so they tried to leave you alone for a year if you had a deployment. And one of the things that my division officer said before Haiti, because I was like, really, I have a 24 or 48 hour notice. And she's like, if you do this will count as your deployment for the year. Like, regardless of how long it is, that'll count. And I'm like, all right, cool. So go do it, come back. I think I was back for about 6 weeks. And she comes back to me and she's like, hey, I have a deployment for you. And I was like, no. I was like, you told me if I did that Haiti one that I was good for the year. And she's like, I know, but we don't have anybody else. And so I was like,
back to not trusting people unless it's in writing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, where is this one going? She's like, Afghanistan. And I'm like,
oh,
okay.
Boy.
And I said, well, how long's this? And she's like, well, it's going to be about 10 or 11 months. And I'm like, when am I leaving? And she's like, well, it's like in a couple of weeks. so yeah, turning around, went to Afghanistan. And
it's the first time in the Middle East.
Yes. And mind you, I was new nurse. I'd only been a nurse for a couple of years at that point. And I had only been a critical care nurse for I just got to the critical care area right before Haiti. So I really have not learned anything about critical care medicine. And I was getting sent to these locations as a critical care nurse, which I had brought that up. And I was like, these people are expecting me to know what I'm doing critical care wise. I'm not really there. And she's like, oh, it's okay. There'll be plenty of people out there that will be able to help you.
So there's a lot of learning on the fly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been my life the whole time. So, yes.
So what I want to I'm interested to know, when you deploy as a nurse, especially to the Middle East during that time, like, what does it look like? Like, what does your daily life look like? How close are you to actual combat happening versus like?
So the Afghanistan deployment, I was with the Marines. And so we support the Marine Corps with the medical because they don't have their own medical. And so we were deployed with the Marines, and we were what we would call a level 2 or a role 2. So we were a group of nurses, doctors, anesthesia, corpsmen that, like the group that I was with, we were kind of traveling from FOB to FOB or COP, wherever they knew or they thought there was going to be an increase in activity, they would send us to these locations, because technically we are able to, our training allows us to either pop up a tent and do surgery, or we take over a hard structure and do surgery. Mm. So we're called a shock trauma platoon and a forward resuscitative surgical suite. So we have like an ER component and a surgical component. It's a small team where we can take incoming further forward than like your typical larger bases.
Got it. So you're like the first level of response.
Yeah. The first level technically is like where the point of injury is. So where with the troops that are in there, we are the second line. So we're kind of in between the big hospital and that first level. Yep. And what we are meant to do is stabilize. So if they can't, if they're throwing tourniquets on or whatever, and that's not helping because they have like a wound in the abdomen or the chest, they bring them to us, and we can, again, we're like in a tent, we have very little resources. We're just kind of out there. But we're able to go in and cut and open and basically, and we're not fixing them, but we're just stabilizing them and doing it through surgical means. So
are you out like literally in the middle of nowhere? Or are you like some sort of infrastructure around where you're setting up?
There's some, so like there's the forward operating bases that are a little bit far forward from the main base. And so we'll either be in there or, I was at a combat outpost, which was another very small base that was, so you have like your FOBs and you have your combat outposts that are smaller than that.
Yep.
So wherever they thought there was going to be an increase in fighting, then they would throw us out there. So you're kind of out there, and then, medical wise, you don't have anybody else but your little team. So you have, you don't have, more doctors or nurses to depend on. You kind of have to wear a lot of hats in those situations. And then you don't have a lot of your supplies and all that stuff. So it's kind of whatever you are able to carry over there. So,
I'm sure you learn very quickly though. Like I'm sure like within a very short period of time, like your skill sets just skyrocketed.
Yeah. I mean, it was like do or die, And so, and that's where I ended up starting to fly, which I wasn't technically a flight nurse. So there's a difference with flight nurses who go through an actual curriculum, they get, wings and all that stuff. And then there's en route care, which is a form of transportation that really, there's very minimal training for it. But to me, it's actually more hectic than what our, some of the flight nurses do, because we are in this kind of environment. We don't have the training like they do, to be on helicopters and so forth. I volunteered to do it because I did have the background in helicopters and flying when I was a search and rescue medic. But now you're throwing the critical care part of it on top of it. So what would happen is that, we would stabilize a patient. So again, I'm not meant to be part of any kind of flight crew or flight team, but in those days we would call in a 9-line. So we would call in the helicopter to transport a patient to the bigger hospital. And at the time it was dust off that would normally come. And the medics on dust off, they weren't trained in critical care. So our patients were considered critical care after we touched them because they're sedated. They have tubes down their throat. They have, there's a lot of things going on. They're getting blood. They're getting all this stuff that critical care, you have to have knowledge in critical care for that. And so the medics at the time weren't trained for that. So they would come and pick up our patients and they're like, I can't transport that patient because they don't have the training for that. And so what happened was, hey, nurse, get on the back of the helicopter and transport the patient.
Yeah.
Lots of problems with that. One of them being that nurses aren't trained to be on the helicopter. So there's a lot of things that go into flying. And so now I'm, technically a passenger, but I'm really like taking care of this patient at the same time. And I had knowledge about helicopters, but some of these nurses that got thrown on there, they had no knowledge. They've never been on a helicopter before. They don't know like the safety stuff that goes with helicopters.
Yep.
Like you can't approach from certain angles, going into it. You have to, there's a lot of things that go into it. And so, I volunteered thinking like, okay, well, at least I have the helicopter knowledge part. And I thought like, well, I'll have, some hands-on. I really didn't know what to expect when I got on the helicopter. But I do remember the first flight was at night and I'm taking this patient out. And I remember the surgeon, he tapped me on the back. He's like, all right, good luck, kid. And I was just like, okay. So I'm walking out there. And he's sedated with all this medication that I really have never handled before. And so my anesthesiologist is walking me out there and he's got a couple of syringes of medication. He's like, all right, just push this one every 30 minutes and then push this one. And and it was like paralytics, it was sedation. Again, I never handled it. Plus he's intubated and on a vent. I've never handled a vent before in my life. Yeah. And so now I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out this vent thing. And,
It's crazy.
So I get on the back of the helicopter thinking, okay, well, like someone's going to help me when I get on there. And I'm, being crew before, I'm like, they're going to bring me a headset. I'm going to be able to talk to the crew. Like it's going to be fine when I get on there. And I get on and the crew chief points me to the back. And so I was like, and this is a Black Hawk, so it's really not that big anyway. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, there's no seats back there. So they put my patient in and I'm behind the patient in the back of the helicopter squatted in a squatting position, not really hooked up to anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, headset? And they're like, yeah, we don't have one for you. And so I was like, okay, so if I like need something, like how do I, so he had this little notepad on his leg, and I grab his pen and I'm writing him like, hey, how do I communicate with you? And he's just like, hand signals. And I was kind of like, I was like, is there a medic on board? And he like points to the other guy, but the other guy's like, I don't know this stuff. And so that's the moment where I was like, I'm alone in all of this right now.
Yeah, you are it.
And I don't know where I'm going really with this patient. And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no way to communicate with these people. I'm leaving my crew and I don't know how to even get back to them. And I don't have a way to communicate with them. I mean, it was just,
was there any crazy sort of, like thought process of like, I can't do this? Or is it just like, I'm going to figure it out, even though I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to figure it out?
I think yes. And the whole time I was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, there's just no way you're gonna be able to do this. And but I mean, you're just in it. And so, and then, the second thought is I'll figure it out, I guess. And so, there I was squatting in the back of this Black Hawk with a pen light between cause it was night and we can't turn lights on cause you're flying in the combat area. So, just praying that nothing happens to this guy. And, I can't really see. So I'm having to like do a lot of feeling. There's no stethoscope or hearing. So I have to like,
that's crazy.
I'm just constantly feeling and making sure blood isn't going anywhere, that he's not bleeding to death anywhere. And
there's no lights. It's just a pen light.
I just had a pen light. That's it.
That's crazy.
So it was kind of like, I was, a little stupid at first. I was like, hey, can we turn the lights on? And they're like, no, we can't turn the lights on. We're flying targets.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's wild. You got like trauma care without not just like, I think the trauma care itself, combat trauma on its own would like stress out a lot of people. And then you've got the fact that you can't see what you're doing barely.
I can't see, I can't hear, I don't know. All this equipment's new to me. I'm trying to keep him down, right? Cause he's got a tube down his throat. I'm praying he doesn't wake up and pull that thing and go crazy in the helicopter. So, and I was, you're pretty much doing as a one person show, what a whole team, like what the Air Force does, like a whole team. So it was not very comfortable. And then, we land over at one of the bases and the trauma team's waiting for me, which was, that was like, intimidating as it was. And they, you could hear a pin drop when I walked in, and they were like, all right, go for it. Tell us what's going on. And I was just, my mind was so all over the place at that point. And I just remember, because the ground crew came and grabbed my patient. They're like, hey, you need to go walk in and give him a report. I'm thinking in my head, like I can just pull the doctor aside and like kind of give him a little report. And I have this entire trauma team staring at me like, go for it. I was like, he's alive.
He's alive, yeah.
I was like, there's a heartbeat. There's no, I was like, here's the legs. Cause when I was walking away from getting on the helicopter, one of the techs threw a bag at me, a biohazard bag, which was the legs. And I was just like, it's just so surreal. So I'm like carrying his legs.
Did you get a full report from when you took the patient?
I did. Well, I was there as part of the crew when we first got him. So
right.
I knew what was going on with him.
Got it.
But it was just, when it came time to fly, I was like, oh wait, that's me. I'm flying. I had to go get ready and, go out of the OR, put all my stuff on. And it was just one of those, like, what is going on? What is happening right now? And so, I remember one of the corpsmen like, hey, don't forget this, and throws the legs at me in the bag. And so I'm like, I walk in there with the going to the trauma team with like this bag with his legs, and I'm like, hey, here's his legs, and he's got heartbeat. I was like, they must have been like, what? And like, they put this girl on the helicopter. So that was my first flight.
Flash forward a number of years, do you get to a point where like that's totally on par, normal, like you feel totally comfortable in that situation, or is that still like a crazy story?
That's a crazy situation. So I ended up doing 21 more flights like that when I was there, and I came back from that with a vengeance. Like, we do not put people in these situations. This is terrible. And for me to be, I was very it was very hectic for me. And I was in my 30s at the time, and I'd had a background in helicopters. I had done some stuff. I was medic for, almost 10 years. But we were putting brand new nurses in situations like that. And I was like, I can't even imagine being 22, 23, no experience. And I'm finding myself, which we did that throughout Iraq and Afghanistan. And so when I got back from that deployment, I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous to put people in this kind of situation. So I made it a point to try to change that as best as I could. And so the remainder of at that point, 10 years left, I I did everything I could. I joined committees. I talked to anybody who would listen to me. I set up training programs myself and pissed off a lot of people because I was just like, I'm not sending anybody else into that situation without training, you know, without what they need to do. Like, I didn't even know what gear I was supposed to have. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there with, you know, not the right gear. I didn't know what I was supposed to bring with me or what it was just a shit show. So,
and the patient's care suffers too when you it's not that it's your fault to be put in that situation, but like I mean, you want the most experienced possible person.
Exactly. And so a lot of nurses would come back from those places and they would blame themselves because we're very like, we're type A that way. It's like you don't look at the, you know, I wasn't trained properly. You look at what, you know, it's my fault. And it's like, well, it can't be your fault if you didn't know any better. So, so yeah, we lost a lot of nurses to like mental health stuff. And because of that, cause they would blame themselves if something happened to their patient, which just, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. So, especially the last 5 years of my career was trying to do anything I could to train people and, you know, yell as loud as I could for people to hear me that this isn't right. But some changes were made, but I've talked to a few people still and they're it sounds like we're kind of back to square one, which I've said, you know, that was, you know, a place that we had a lot of control over. So we had airspace control. We had, you know, we had control over that pretty much the whole situation. If we go to war with a larger country that has the same type of capabilities as us, we're medical wise, we're screwed. So
still to this day. Yeah. Interesting. So in those last few years, are you still deploying?
The last few years. So I did another deployment right after I got back from Afghanistan. I turned around and I joined what they call a fleet surgical team. So, that was kind of my only choice to join because at that point I had really spent no time at my actual duty station and it was time for me to rotate again. And so I wanted to stay in San Diego because I was like, I didn't really feel like I was, you know, here for the most part because I was gone so much. And the only thing available was this fleet surgical team, which we're stationed on the ships essentially. And so I ended up choosing it and they told me that, oh yeah, you probably won't deploy and like, it'll be fine. And so I choose the one that's available to me and I call the guy that I'm replacing and he was like, oh my gosh, thank God that you're replacing because we're deploying. And I was like,
right away. Wow.
So yeah, so I turned around and did a Westpac for 6 months after that. So it was a long 2.5 years just deploying.
So you're ready to be done after that?
Yeah, I had one more duty station and I was kind of like, I'm finished after this. But right when I was at that 20, I got promoted to 04 and it was one of those decision-making times where it was like, well, better retirement. So might as well stay that extra 3.5 years and do that. So I ended up doing 23.5 years total. So yeah.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Transitioning post-military.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Did you know what you wanted to do or were you still just like,
I had no idea.
I'm going to figure it out like everything else?
This is where, 23.5 years and I went through a lot of crap and saw some stuff and, but it never, the PTSD thing, I felt like a lot of it, is my job. I was, you go to a level 1 trauma center anywhere in the country and you're seeing some of the same crap other than the blast and like some of those things. But, I don't feel like I was really affected, I guess. I mean, it could be, some people think I'm crazy, so I don't know. It might come out later. But I never had that feeling like, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm not right. I just kind of was trudging through life or whatever. As soon as I retired, it was just surreal. I don't know. That's when it really hit me, I think. And I don't know why we don't talk a lot about the transition phase especially for people who've been in that long. I'm like, my whole entire adult life was military.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And so now I'm in my 40s and, I kind of talk about it like, not that I've ever been in prison, but I imagine it's similar to where, every day you wake up, you know what you're going to wear, you know where you're going to be, pretty much what you're eating every day. I mean, it's just like a very routine thing. Mm-hmm. And then, and the whole time you're like, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out. And then all of a sudden the door is closed behind you and you're just like, let me back in. Yeah. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So it was just a weird feeling. And for probably the way I dealt with it is I piled my plate. because I don't know, there's this thing like where you want to stay relevant, I guess, you know, because like when you're in the military, especially like if you're doing certain jobs, you're important and people want to talk to you and they want you, you know, your opinion on things and, you know, you're teaching, whatever. And all of a sudden you're not, nobody's calling for you or asking for you. So, yeah, it's just a weird thing. And so, you know, I've talked to other people who said, yeah, I was just doing way too many things to, you know, try to stay relevant, I guess, and have some sort of like routine or whatever. But I ended up piling my plate way too high. And then I didn't, you know, then it was like, I don't like doing any of this. So now I had to like unpile the plate. And so it was a good probably 6 months, year, or maybe even longer before I kind of figured out. I don't know. I don't even know if I've actually figured it out yet. And I'm going on 6 years now from retirement, and I still feel like am I doing what I want to do? I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing at this point. I'm 49 years old and I don't really know.
Well, the good thing is there's no rules.
True.
Do whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're doing some great stuff here with this building, by the way. I think it's really awesome, and you guys are clearly doing good things, being able to expand, and
this has been, so how we got here was, so retired, and I did a few kind of odd jobs, and then New York or COVID happened, and so I volunteered to go to New York, and I was part of a team that stood up a field hospital there, and did that for a couple months, came back, and you know, now we're in the COVID phases of lots of weirdness happening, and just things that didn't make sense. I'm a very logical person, and there wasn't a lot of logic going on at that time.
Especially here in California, not to get political, but
So I was, you know, pretty vocal about it, like on my social media and stuff. And it just didn't make sense to me, a lot of the things that were going on. And so, was trying to go through that phase. I was working part-time at one of the hospitals, and then what did I do after that? I did a couple other odd jobs that it didn't work out, didn't like it. Actually dragged my business partner now into a lot of these jobs that I did. I've known her since we started out nursing together in the military. And so nice. I've known her for about 20 years, and every job that I got, I was like, hey, you need to do this with me. And it turned out to be terrible. So, I kept telling her, I was like, at some point you'll stop listening to me. Stop telling me, or stop giving me your resume. But, you know, a few jobs, worked at the hospital, did the New York thing. I actually did executive protection for a while with a firm out of DC, and traveled the world, you know, a little bit doing that. And then decided I hated traveling so much. And so, got into aesthetics. So my background's always been ER, trauma, you know, pre-hospital, that kind of thing. And I was at the point where I'm like, I'm tired of seeing people on their worst day. And so I want to do something fun and happy, and, you know, get out of the whole trauma world and, you know, the high speed, all the whatever crazy chaos stuff. And so I was like, oh, I like Botox. Maybe I'll start doing that. So, went to training, got certified, and then started working at another place and learning how to do all of this. And the problem when you work for somebody else, you know, as a nurse with as many years as I have for experience, you don't really get paid the same as you would get paid in the hospital. And so it really isn't a wage that you can live off of. And so I realized, okay, if I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to either I just don't do it anymore, or I need to do it on my own terms. And so I called my business partner and was like, hey, do you want to start a business with me? Again, she should learn her lesson at this point, but she was like, sure. So we started, 3 years ago, we came up with this, and it's been an adventure. So
yeah.
Owning your own business. They don't tell you how difficult it is. And
no, they don't.
It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And, you know, I'm sitting here like I'm supposed to be retired and I am working harder than I feel like I've ever had in my life. So, you know, the first 2 years you don't pay yourself. And so I'm working this during the week, and then I'm working at the hospitals on the weekends to pay the bills. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So, but yeah, this came up, and, you know, I was working out of just one little room, and my business partner, Erin, she was doing all the back office stuff and the physicals and doing a lot of virtual things. And she handles all the administrative stuff and financials. And, this opportunity came up in this building, and, you know, we're like, okay, we're kind of at a crossroads. We either like call it a day, that was a great experiment, or we take it to the next level. And so we decided to take it to the next level. So here
Nice.
we are.
I mean, it just enhances your story of like I said, all these accolades that you have. It's so cool. Like you're not just one thing or two things. You're doing all these things, and you've got a crazy long resume now.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
It's a little out of control now.
And now you can add to your resume that you're going to be on a can.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, we're very excited. I'll kind of give that speech here real quick, but we're going to have you on our peach tea cans. We're very excited.
Yes.
So as we mentioned before, the idea was to tell the stories of different people who have done really brave or heroic or just have really cool stories to tell from the groups that we give back to, the military and veterans, the nurses, first responders, and your story stood out to us as being just super powerful. So we're very excited to have you as the first nurse / medical proud patriot on the cans, and we'll have you on the peach tea cans on the next batch. Yeah,
I'm very honored. I told you before that I feel like there's a million other people you probably could have picked for that, but I'm very honored to be selected for that. So I
absolutely
appreciate it.
Wouldn't have anyone else. But thank you again for doing this with us, and thank you for your service both in the military and as a nurse. I know that's a form of service on its own.
It is. Yeah. I mean, being a nurse, and it's a lot, but there's a lot of burnout in this career field, but it is one of the best things. And it's one of those things that I always tell, I have a lot of young women that ask me about it and, my thoughts about it. And my view with being a nurse is that it's a very respectable career choice. And it's one of those things. It's like, if you don't love it, it's still there, and you'll always have a job. You can get a job anywhere in the world, and it is, there are a lot of other things than just working in a hospital. You can go pre-hospital, you can join organizations and help with disaster relief. And I've been to Iraq, I've been to, different places around the world as a nurse to help other people out. So there's a lot of things that you can do instead of just, the bedside nursing and things like that. So it's a great field to go into if there's always something different that you can do. If you don't like where you are, you can go somewhere else, or you can do something else. And so, it's great.
Definitely. But the kind of core principle of across all those things is you're helping others, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yes.
And thank you for having us here in California. And
Hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.